hear me?
No, not really. You're good in Zoom.
Speak.
Can you hear me now? Yes?
Yes.
All right, our next speaker is Mark Dimondstein. He is the president of the American Postal Workers Union, which represents over 200,000 U.S. Postal Service workers and 1,500 employees in the private sector mailing industry. Currently serving his fourth three-year term, he has transformed the APWU into a fighting activist organization. He helped establish a grand alliance to save our public postal service, strengthen the unity among the four postal unions, helped forge the campaign for Postal Banking, and led the successful fight against a privatization scheme involving the office supplies chain Staples. He has promoted unity between postal workers' contract demands and people's demands for an expanded, vibrant public postal service. He has been a consistent voice for bringing the war dollars home and having the basic needs of the working class take priority over the military-industrial complex. So, Mark Dimondstein, are you here? You are.
I am. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? We can hear okay?
Yes.
Yeah, let me start just by saying how pleased and honored I am to be able to say a few words, even though I'm coming in on Zoom Airways and can't be with you in person. But sisters, brothers, comrades, good to be with new fighters for peace and justice. Let me start by saying I am not a veteran myself, but veterans like you absolutely have a crucial role to play against unjust war. My dad, my father, was a highly decorated World War II veteran. And while he knew that anti-fascist war had to be fought and won, he was vehemently against the unjust imperialist wars that followed. And like you, was most certainly a veteran for peace, from the war in Korea to the war in Vietnam and the war in Iraq, which he vehemently opposed. So I was lucky to grow up with that influence from both of my parents. Brother John Braxton asked me to touch on a few questions. One was how to raise awareness in the labor movement of the need to cut the military budget and military spending. Two, the important role that veterans can play in this. And three, how to build links between the labor movement and the peace movement. So let me take a shot at that with the time that we have. First, I think we raise awareness to cut military spending, starting with education, focusing on unifying around concrete issues like Sister Roach was talking about, and common interests, and then turning it into action. So part of that education is to appeal to workers that we need to be political, because the powers that be, and I think you all know this, the Wall Street ruling class, and unfortunately many union leaders, take the position that unionized workers and workers in general should focus only on the economic, quotes, bread and butter issues. They try to convince workers like you and I, with some real success, unfortunately, that the political struggle should be left to the educated, the politicians and the law. But in real life, it is political economy, and they cannot be separated. And if we just examine this recent, big, beautiful, ugly bill, we see the connection. In order to advance massive tax breaks for the wealthiest, and at the same time to fund a record $1 trillion, quotes, defense budget, as well as massively funding the repressive apparatus of ICE. They are cutting Medicaid and food assistance to millions of working and low-income folks, including millions of children, and undermining government services, including those for veterans. And if I can just add in here, I'm very proud not just to represent postal workers, but the United States Postal Service is the largest civilian employer of veterans, and it makes up about 22 or 23% of the people that the American Postal Workers Union is made up of. But back to the point. So issues of taxation, the environment, foreign policy, civil liberties, and the rights are all working class issues. You know better than I that it is the working class that is asked and often compelled to kill and be killed on behalf of Wall Street and corporate greed. In relation to cutting military spending, you can't have it both ways. It's almost a mathematical equation. 2 + 2 = 4. You can't have massive and ever-increasing bloated military spending on behalf of the military-industrial complex and the profits of multinationals, and at the same time sufficiently address human and social needs at home. President Eisenhower said it well. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. It is spending the sweat of its laborers and the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. Cutting military spending can be shifted into education, healthcare, clean water, clean air, workplace safety, VA benefits, affordable housing. And that is the unifying basis to unite workers across the political spectrum to cut military spending. And it is worth noting, I think, that some of Trump's demagogic appeal, but some of his words that ring with the working class, is the words of opposition. These endless wars that we know have really been promoted by both of the mainstream political parties. And such education can be done through articles in union and other publications, speaking up at union meetings, at local, regional, and national meetings, and having the frank and sometimes difficult conversations, bringing forward and debating resolutions, and then once passed, moving them into action. So I'll give you an example. In 2016, at our national convention, we deliberated on a resolution bringing the war dollars home. We used it to educate our 2,000 delegates, talking about the U.S. ranking first in military spending, more than the next 11 countries combined, but ranking 14th in education, 24th in literacy, 26th in infant mortality, 37th in healthcare, and 43rd in life expectancy. Connecting the dots. It's strongly passed, but a resolution just sits there if we don't do anything about it, right? So, it becomes meaningless. So, but it was that resolution passed by the highest authority of our union that where I took my guidance, and took it to sign the American Postal Workers Union on to the people over the Pentagon Act. We also took a similar resolution to the 2017 AFL-CIO convention, which also passed. So unionists around the country can use that resolution to promote their efforts at the local level, their efforts to reduce this obscene and outrageous military spending. Second point on the role of veterans in these efforts. Veterans like you have a unique opportunity based on your service and experience to influence others on the issue. I'll give you a quick example. My wife, also a postal worker and union activist, had the courage to bring to her local union meeting in Greensboro, North Carolina, a resolution to oppose the war drive against Iraq. This is before the full-blown war broke out. There was not enough organizing done in advance, and she'll be the first to admit it, and a former Marine member, an honest guy, vehemently opposed it and used his veteran status to help soundly defeat that resolution. But because he was honest, 1 year later, this same veteran union member took the floor at a union meeting, and this was after he had the experience where the weapons of mass destruction campaign was exposed as a big lie and a hoax. And he stood up at a union meeting, he apologized specifically to my wife by name for his previous position, and with his influence, helped change the views of our members. And the third point, the labor movement and the anti-war movement, the peace movement, through unity of action and not just talking about it. Those unions that have anti-war positions should be in the streets with anti-war activists. That is what we did on the question of the genocide in Gaza, fueled by the U.S. government's political and military support and our working class tax dollars. Once again, the APWU passed a convention resolution calling for the end of U.S. military aid to Israel unless and until there's a genuine ceasefire and massive humanitarian aid to the suffering people of Gaza. On that basis, the APWU not only signed on to broader resolutions and statements with a number of other unions to have stepped forward, but I was able to then speak on behalf of our union at the large and important anti-war rally when Netanyahu was shamelessly invited to address Congress with the support of both the Democrat and Republican leadership. My time is up, friends. I hope what I've shared is somewhat useful for your ongoing, challenging, but really vital work. Fighting for international solidarity based on justice and peace and mutual respect for all workers and peoples of all lands. Keep up the great work. I hope you have a really successful